I was feeling ambitious today and decided that I wanted to read 2 chapters. Why I would torture myself so is a mystery even to me, but let's not dwell on it. I suppose the faster I read, the faster I can finish this stupid book, right? Let's get started. Chapter 7, Nightmare. I suppose Jacob's Native American ghost story from the last chapter, which I didn't read because it was stupid and pointless, and we already know that Edward is a vampire, scared the crapola out of our dear Bella Swan because the first thing she does when she gets home is go to bed with Linkin Park blasting on 11 from her portable CD player. That's right folks, this book is old enough and Ms. Meyer is retarded enough that Bella has a CD player and not an MP3 player of some kind. I've just proven that Twilight is outdated and therefore no longer relevant to the universe. You're welcome. Somehow she manages to fall asleep even though she's listening to music at full volume. I'm sorry, I need a moment. Linkin Park. Of all the bands. If you thought this book was terrible before, I'm curious to know what you think of it now. For those of you following along in the book, you'll notice that Bella never actually says she's listening to Linkin Park. Trust me on this though, she is. I've done my research. And it worked. The shattering beats made it impossible for me to think, which was the whole purpose of this exercise. I listened to the CD again and again until I was singing along with all the songs until, finally, I fell asleep. If I had time, I would go into detail about this being an example of why Ms. Meyer's writing style sucks, but unfortunately, I don't. And I've gone into it before, so there's no need to repeat a fact that's already been stated. I opened my eyes to a familiar place. Aware in some corner of my consciousness that I was dreaming, I recognized the green light of the forest. First, let me point out that in the movie Inception, Leo DiCaprio makes a fine point that in dreams you never really know the beginning of the dream or how you got to where you are. So how is Bella able to realize that she opened her eyes and poof, that's the start of the dream? I could hear the waves crashing against the rocks somewhere nearby. And I knew that if I found the ocean, I'd be able to see the sun. She's concerned about the weather even while she sleeps. Dear sweet Mother Genova, this is Bella's worst fucking nightmare. I was trying to follow the sound, but then Jacob Black was there tugging my hand, pulling me back toward the blackest part of the forest. You know how when people try to tell you about their dreams and you just don't fucking care? Look at all the fucks I give about Bella's dream. Heavy metal bands don't give a fuck either. Jacob, what's wrong? I asked. His face was frightened as he yanked with all his strength against my resistance. I didn't want to go into the dark. Run Bella, you have to run, he whispered, terrified. This way Bella. I recognized Mike's voice calling out of the gloomy heart of the trees, but I couldn't see him. Why? I asked, still pulling against Jacob's grasp, desperate now to find the sun. Bella's nightmare just gets worse and worse, doesn't it? But Jacob let go of my hand and yelped, suddenly shaking, falling to the dim forest floor. He twitched on the ground as I watched in horror. Jacob, I screamed, but he was gone. In his place was a large red-brown wolf with black eyes. The wolf faced away from me, pointing toward the shore, the hair on the back of his shoulders bristling, low growls issuing from between his exposed fangs. Bella, run, Mike cried out again from behind me. But I didn't turn. I was watching a light coming toward me from the beach. And then Edward stepped out from behind the trees, his skin faintly glowing, his eyes black and dangerous. How Edward's eyes dangerous? Are they wielding swords or something? Just saying. He held up one hand and beckoned me to come to him. The wolf growled at my feet. I took a step forward toward Edward. He smiled then, and his teeth were sharp, pointed. Trust me, he purred. Oh, Edward is a cat now? I took another step. The wolf launched himself across the space between me and the vampire, fangs aiming for the jugular. And then I woke up. Ah, the cliché ending to all trite dream tellings. That's not actually how it ended, but it was at this point that she woke up, realizing that she was still fully dressed at 5:30 in the morning and that her gay little poser metal music was still blaring through her headphones. Let's analyze this dream sequence a little more closely now, shall we? In a literary setting, dreams are usually used to foretell something that is going to happen in the coming plot. In the case of Twilight, there is no plot. So what purpose does this sequence serve? I'll tell you. It serves to only solidify the fact that yes, Edward is a glittery fucking vampire, which we have known from the beginning. Jacob is a werewolf, and also to prove that Bella is a complete and utter nutter. Forget about being subtle, Stephenie Meyer just comes right out and tells us, these are my characters. They're completely one-dimensional and static, and there is no reason you should want to continue reading this drivel any further because I'm just going to tell you everything you need to know right now instead of taking a reasonable amount of time to reveal their true personalities through well-planned and thoughtful character development. I groaned, fell back, and rolled over onto my face, kicking off my boots. Yes, please do us all a favor and smother yourself in that billow. My subconscious had dredged up exactly the images I'd been trying so desperately to avoid. I was going to have to face them now. Bella, you are crazy if you believed Jacob's ghost story. Any normal person would have laughed it off and not put stock in old legends like that. To keep you up to speed with what Jacob actually told her in the last chapter, the Native Americans on the reservation believe they descended from wolves. Jacob's great-grandfather met the Cullens the first time they were in Forks and made a treaty that forbade the Cullens from setting foot on Quileute lands and also from biting humans lest there be consequences. I probably should have read Jacob's story last chapter, but I was so frustrated I just couldn't. She goes and gets a shower, blow-dries her hair, checks to see if her dad is home. He isn't. No surprise there. Gets dressed and makes her bed. Paper was wasted to take 2 whole paragraphs to write out dear narrator's morning routine. I couldn't put it off any longer. I went to my desk and switched on my old computer. You'd think she was putting off a huge essay or something the way she talks about trying to avoid using the computer. What she's really trying to put off though is the moment she discovers that she belongs in the psych ward. I hated using the internet here. My modem was sadly outdated. My free service substandard. Just dialing up took so long that I decided to go get myself a bowl of cereal while I waited. What is this, 1992? With another sigh, I turned to my computer. Naturally, the screen was covered in pop-up ads. I sat in my hard folding chair and began closing all the little windows. Why so many pop-ups? Do you have any little secret habits we should know about? Maybe it's your father we should be worried about? Eventually I made it to my favorite search engine. You mean Google, right? As far as I know, that's the search engine most people use. Of course, there are the hipsters who prefer Bing, and then there's the super hipsters that prefer Yahoo, and looking even deeper down into the levels of hipsterdom we see the mega die-hard hipsters who prefer Ask.com, formerly known as Ask Jeeves. And they still call it that because they are so far lost to the world that they swim in their own bullshit. So anyway, Bella narrates her exploration of the internet as she begins her research on vampires. It's really boring. She should have just bought the Element Encyclopedia of Vampires. It has all the information she needs to know about Edward Cullen. I'd like to see Stephenie Meyer write a narration of a normal teenager's internet activities. I checked my Facebook and saw that my mom was in Miami with Phil. They had gone on a vacation from Jacksonville and had a party on the beach. She posted some wild pics with the caption #YOLO, and I liked the one where she had a line of jello shots in front of her. Her Twitter page contained the exact same updates. That was all the news I saw, as my mom was my only friend on those sites, and Charlie doesn't believe in computers. I rejected all the new friend requests I'd gotten the day I started school in Forks. Those people were losers. I looked for a new friend request from Edward Cullen. Still nothing. Drat. Then I went and checked my blog on Tumblr. I scrolled down and saw a funny picture of a cat on my dash. I liked and reblogged it, adding a comment of lol at the bottom. Then I realized that I forgot to open the reblog link in a new tab, so I had to scroll all the way back down to where I stopped. It was exhausting. I reblogged a few more entertaining posts and before I knew it, it was 7 PM and I'd spent my entire day on Tumblr. But I got a few new followers, so the day was not entirely wasted. I realized then that I had better check YouTube for any new subscription updates. There were a few, and I watched those. Then somehow I stumbled across a really cool series called Sephiroth Reads Twilight, and it was hilarious. So I watched that for about an hour. I hope the person that makes that series updates soon. Then I went on to Google and they had a fun little interactive title on the homepage today. So I played with it for another half hour. I realized I hadn't eaten since my bowl of cereal this morning, so I went and got another one. Then I got on Memebase. I think you get the idea. Aggravated, I snapped off the computer's main power switch, not waiting to shut things down properly. Through my irritation, I felt overwhelming embarrassment. It was all so stupid. What was wrong with me? It would be too fucking easy to belittle our narrator's intelligence here, so I'm just going to skip it and let you have a go at it on your own. We have precious little time and this video is already extremely long. The next thing Bella does is go for a hike through the woods in her backyard. We find out at this point that Bella can in fact recognize different types of trees from quite a long way away. She identified several, but there were no trees of the larch classification. She finds a log and sits down and considers her sanity for a little while. At this point in the chapter, it's nothing more than our dear narrator's supposedly deep thoughts which no one cares about. However, she considers the fact that if Edward is really a vampire, he's not dangerous because he, quote, had done nothing to hurt me so far. She considers the possibility of avoiding him and telling him to leave her alone, but is gripped in a sudden agony of despair when she thinks about it, so she rules that option out. Again, I will bring up the fact that they hardly know each other. So why the fuck does she feel so strongly about this asshole? I didn't know if there was a choice really. I was already into deep. Bella, you have a crush. It is not love. Do not confuse the two. That was the reason for Romeo and Juliet's downfall, you moron. And to think Stephenie Meyer compares her writing to a playwright whose work is still around nearly 400 years after his death. Billy Shakes is the man, Stephenie Meyer is fat. The end. Bella gets back to the house about noon and changes her clothes again, and for the next 8 hours works on a paper about Macbeth that's due 3 days from the current time. Seriously, Bella is a fucking psychopath. It's the weekend. Why is she doing homework? She should have gotten on Tumblr. Or maybe played some Minecraft or something. I don't know. Just, what kind of teenager takes a perfectly good Sunday and spends it writing a school paper? This is just an excuse for S. Meyer to write out another huge chunk of time. The next day, to Bella's delight, it is a bright sunny day. Of course, she's in a fantastic mood. I think it's a bit ridiculous and unbelievable that the weather affects this girl's mood so powerfully. Anyway, she goes to school early for some reason and sits down at a picnic table to recheck her homework. This girl definitely needs a hobby. She spends way too much time on schoolwork. However, from the point of view we get to see, she doesn't have much to show for it. This is another reason Stephenie Meyer is a bad writer. She shows Bella studying intently and doing her homework, giving the reader an impression that Bella is smart, but she does not show us that Bella is smart through use of action. In fact, she does the exact opposite. Then she sees Mike and he comes over and they have a conversation. What are you writing yours on? That is Mike asking Bella what she wrote her paper about. Whether Shakespeare's treatment of the female character is misogynistic. Stephanie Meyer, you have no fucking idea what that word means because you would not have written half the shit you wrote in this shitty ass series if you did. Guess what? Edward isn't in school today. The sunshine made Bella the happiest she'd been in ages. I'd almost begun to not loathe her entirely. And Edward's absence brought us right back to the moping sod she's been from the beginning of this shit book. Two things affect her mood: weather and sparkles. This girl really needs to re-examine her life. Then she goes home. I was glad to leave campus so I would be free to pout and mope before I went out tonight with Jessica and company. At least she acknowledges that she's a sad sack of shit. It doesn't change the fact that it's still boring as hell to read about her constant misery. So later that night she checks her email and finds out her mom is freaking out because she hasn't heard from her daughter since she moved in with her dad. You're such an uncaring bitch. You don't even have the courtesy to call your own mother. That is unacceptable. Mother is always your top priority. After doing that, she goes outside with a bunch of old books and can't read any of them because all of the love interests in the books are either named Edward or are fairly close to the name Edward. Then she does some other stuff and the chapter ends finally with Bella leaving school on Tuesday, then leaving with Jessica and Angela to go dress shopping in Port Angeles. Goddamn, that chapter was fucking long. How the hell did I stretch that out like I did? Anyway, next chapter, Bella gets gangbanged. Look forward to it.